Hello everyone, this is chapter 4 and it's about parenting styles. Okay, so what is a parenting style? Well, the definition is that it's a psychological concept representing standard strategies parents use in raising their children. So you may have also heard it referred to as child rearing style, but it's basically the way that you discipline, how much you're involved with your child, how much you accept them. So there's a lot of different contexts. Now, some important elements of parenting, like I said, is they look at warmth and they also look at control. And based on how much a parent exhibits this or expects this from their child depends on where they will fall within the given different parenting styles. So there's authoritarian, permissive, authoritative, and uninvolved. So later on in this chapter, we'll discuss the fourth one, but right now we're going to cover the first three. So an authoritarian parent. When I think of authoritarian, I know this is not a word, but I think of dictarian, like a dictator. So they're highly controlling, and they do it with a low amount of warmth. So they're not very loving, but they're highly controlling, and they, place a high value on following the rules. Do what I say when I say it, and not a lot of explanation. So again, a lot of it is control, maybe sometimes harsh, or most of the time harsh, and again, not encouraging discussion from the child. There's no open communication. It's the way the parent says, and that's it. So they expect the children to be well behaved, and they usually are, again, due to usually fear of parents. But another part of that is they many times have low self-esteem. They are not very independent, and they lack assertion. So some things to think about when exhibiting that type of parenting style or teaching style or caregiving style. Now, permissive parents tend to be low in control, meaning they don't have a lot of rules, they don't have a lot of expectations, and they're highly warm and loving. So the parent, again, doesn't really control their children. They give them a lot of freedom, and the children have high independence. They're friendly, they're self-assertive, but many times are low in compliance. They don't know really how to follow the rules. So when they're faced with authority, they many times challenge that because they're used to making their own rules. And they also have problems with impulse control. Again, when you're used to getting things when you want, it's hard to, be on the other side of that. And in the middle here is authoritative. So if you notice, the last two were on different spectrums regarding control and warmth, but authoritative parents are highly controlling, meaning they have high expectations, they have rules, they have consequences, but they're also highly warm and loving. So they enforce their rules, but they have a give and take. They encourage communication. They want the child to ask questions if they're confused, and the parent doesn't mind explaining themselves and why the rules are the way they are. So they're warm, but they're also demanding. They're direct, and they provide respect for the child, and therefore the child also respects them. And this is the most effective style of child rearing. Now, these children tend to be independent, self-assertive, achievement-oriented, cooperate with parents, they're friendly, have higher self-esteem. So overall, again, research has found that having an authoritative type of parent is the best and overall parenting style for children. Now, again, looking at practices, do parents know about being developmentally appropriate? And again, that takes into account knowing the child's growth patterns, like are you expecting the child to be cleaning their room or getting dressed on their own when they're not really able to do that yet? Are you also taking into account their differences? Again, some children have issues with attention or maybe autism or other developmental delays, so parents have to keep that in mind. Now, part of guidance as a parent is offering direction, A lot of it is demonstration. And again, modeling for children what's expected. Part of that is also supervision and involvement with the child and your influence. Again, you're the child's main role model, so guidance is very important in how you do that. The other part is discipline, and we already talked about punishment, we talked about extinction, but there's correction is also part of it. Is if you're expecting children's behavior to change, you have to offer them the expectations and the tools for getting that change. So how do we encourage children to be autonomous, to be independent, to be go-getters? We let them make choices, again, developmentally appropriate, choosing their own clothes or, making decisions is part of life and makes us who we are. Show respect if they're struggling. It's not easy all the time being a child or an adult, and showing empathy for others is important. Don't ask too many questions. There's some open-ended questions to get the child to start talking, but don't also rush to answer their questions for the child. You want to encourage them to also use sources outside of the home. It used to be, look it up in the dictionary or the encyclopedia. Nowadays with the internet, parents also have to be aware of that and supervising what the child is being exposed to. And don't take away hope. So encouraging independence is showing children that there's hope out there. There's opportunities for them. And again, that will gear children in the right direction. Okay, so the differences between keeping a child dependent and encouraging autonomy, I have some quotes here. So the child says, "I was late for school today. You have to wake me up earlier." So whose responsibility is it, and when is it the child's responsibility or the parents'? And again, that depends on the child and the parent if they feel like the child is ready. But if you want to keep the child dependent on you as a parent, you could say something like, "I'm sorry, sweetie, that was my fault. I'll definitely wake you up earlier tomorrow." And again, taking the responsibility onto yourself rather than allowing the child to be autonomous and saying something like, "I can help you set up your alarm clock so the alarm can wake you up. How much time do you think you need to get ready?" And you help them set the alarm. Again, that is giving the child skills in order for them to be able to handle their own issues. So let's go ahead and skip this because there's other things I'll go through that you need to complete on Blackboard, or that's all on Blackboard for you. But a problem-solving approach. Here, let's go back. Yeah, that was about autonomy. So there's some steps to problem solving. One is talking to the child about their feelings and needs. Number 2 is talking about your own feelings and needs. Because again, in a relationship, there's a give and take. Step 3, brainstorm together. Again, if you can't really think about what's the best solution, each of you should be throwing in some ideas so that you can find a mutually agreeable solution. Write down ideas without evaluating, meaning not judging them, just writing them down. And then decide which ones you like, which ones you don't like, which ones you want to follow through with. And again, that's teaching children how to problem solve and kind of doing it in a calculated way and planned way. Okay, and again, respect, and that was mentioned earlier, but in order for the child to show respect, in order for the child to respect themselves and others, we need to show them respect. We need to show them that there's unlimited possibilities of what you can do with the help of another person. So, putting your heads together can get some good work done. Now let's look at inappropriate parenting practices. So remember earlier there were the 4 parenting styles. This is going to include that 4th one. So here's the 4th style, the uninvolved parent. And notice they're low on both ends, low in control and low in warmth. So they're insensitive to the child's feelings and needs. That's the low in warmth. They're not really encouraging or supportive. they're kind of indifferent. They don't really have demands or rules. And so in this case, it may be an absentee parent, a parent who is not involved in the child's life, maybe doesn't have custody or just is not, a parent to the child. Could be someone who's an addict or, in the prison system, basically not caring for the child, but also being uninvolved in their lives. So even, sometimes if we have issues going on, we can still be involved, but, these are usually the extreme cases. And there may be a parenting style journal that you can go to. So when we go back to Blackboard, you can look at that. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video because something is not looking right here. Oh, okay, it's coming back together. But it just here says, some images on the slides may be difficult to look at, but it's important when we work with children that we kind of have an idea of anything that can be going on with them. So, leading us into that is abuse. So another word for abuse is maltreatment, and there's different types. So there's physical abuse, which usually would result in some kind of physical injury with the child. Sexual abuse, which could include even, prostitution or pornography, and then psychological or emotional abuse, things that usually don't have, outward scars, but can be very harmful for the child, leading to psychological disturbances within the child, maybe depression or, other kind of issues. And that usually comes from that type of abuse is seen as like threatening, intimidating, terrorizing the child. That can be seen as psychological abuse. Now, neglect is involving abandoning the child or basically not meeting their needs. So supervision, feeding, medical, dental care, clothing, cleanliness, all of that is part of being a parent. And when you don't meet the child's needs in those areas, then you're considered as neglectful, and the child is at risk and is considered a form of abuse. Now, again, physical abuse, deliberate harm, and again, this is hard to say in regards to children, but punching, kicking, stabbing, burning can many times lead to have some kind of physical mark, but sometimes not. So, again, it's important to look out for these types of signs when we're caring for children. Sexual abuse, forcing, tricking, threatening with regard to any kind of sexual content with a child. Psychological or emotional abuse, like I said, attacking, rejecting, isolating, terrorizing, ignoring, corrupting, constantly setting the child up, like having really high expectations that they're never going to be able to reach, pointing out things that they can't change, like their physical appearance. It's just basically putting the child down, and that over time, really can weigh on a child just as much as the other types of abuse. So what are the consequences? Many times we see that abuse is in family history. Many times you're abused, you continue the cycle of abuse because that's your natural reaction to certain, stressors, because your brain gets patterned that way. That's why it's really important when we see children who have dealt with abuse that they get some kind of assistance with that, because again, when you don't deal with those issues, they can just come out in your brain patterns without even really thinking about what you're doing. So they do say that certain characteristics many times make a child more prone to maltreatment, and that's even more sad when you think about it. So the child may have some kind of physical disability, or be a low birth weight baby, developmental delays. Again, things completely out of the child's control, and many times put them at a higher risk of abuse. And many families will try to isolate themselves from their community. So again, if you're a teacher and you never see the child's parents, or the child, is seeming withdrawn, those are signs possibly of abuse. And then again, checking in with Blackboard, making sure you've completed all the assignments. So I will just leave this video here, but again, you may have to connect to the different systems, and you guys know all about systems from doing the model assignment. So this is the conclusion of the Chapter 4 PowerPoint.